Welcome to Eye on America. I'm Michelle Miller. Today we look at some of the immigrant and indigenous communities who make our country so vibrant. In New York, we meet a woman tapping into her Middle Eastern roots by brewing beer. Then in California, a Native American tribe partners with the federal government to protect their ancestral coastline. But first, we begin in a place known as paradise. Hawaii is the most expensive state in the nation, and many who were born and raised there are feeling forced to leave. Adam Yamaguchi finds out why so many Native Hawaiians feeling they're being priced out of the only place they've ever called home.
What is so special about being here?
The wind. The wind is different. It smells so sweet. It rained the other day. The oil is just so heavenly. It's just everything about home.
Doreen Hall, born and raised in Pearl City, Oahu, was among those who made the difficult decision a few years ago to leave Hawaii with her husband and youngest son. She's back, but only on a short vacation. Unlike city dwellers priced out to suburbs, Native Hawaiians aren't just leaving their homes, they're leaving their homeland. For many, this is far more than about moving. It's existential. Each year, 15,000 are leaving home for the mainland U.S., which now boasts a larger population of Native Hawaiians than Hawaii itself.
This is where my heart is. This is where my children is. This is where my mom and dad are laid to rest.
Rampant development, an influx of mainlanders moving to Hawaii, and the growing tourism industry have priced Native Hawaiians out of their homeland, and in some cases, have forced families apart.
I'm really gonna miss going out to just see the ocean and being able to hear the waters like this.
17-year-old Hope Mamala's parents left to pursue economic opportunity, leaving her to finish high school alone.
And sometimes I start to cry because as I said, I'm always around my dad then. I call them almost every day and we have a family group chat, so we share pictures of our dogs and stuff. But yeah, it's really sad because I'm really close to my parents.
Why would Hawaiians leave this?
I think Hawaiians are being pushed out of paradise. There's just nothing left for us here to really call our own.
So it's not a choice.
It's not a choice.
Zayden, stop bringing me papers from the back.
Shantasia and Richard Pellin are among the many who are out of options.
So with the cost of living now, it's going to be impossible for us to give our kids something out here. And we know by going to the mainland, we're going to be able to put our kids in a home that we can call ours.
Hawaiians are leaving their homeland for what they call the ninth island of Hawaii, and of all places, Las Vegas, Nevada.
It never gets dull though. So this is insane. All these billboards and just lights, and it's crazy. Yep. Don't have this in Hawaii.
Hawaiians were pioneers of the city's entertainment scene in the 50s and 60s. Over the decades, visitors became residents. But it wasn't until the cost of home ownership in Hawaii skyrocketed that a trickle turned into a near exodus. We met back up with Doreen Hall in her adopted home here in Las Vegas.
Home ownership here becomes a reality for Hawaiians, but comes with a huge sacrifice.
Comes with a huge sacrifice. But we can enjoy to live here. We can breathe. We can afford the mortgage payments. So to actually work to live instead of living to work is amazing.
How are you able to sort of bring that culture with you when everything around you is so different?
I think a lot of us here, a lot of Ohana that is here in Las Vegas, we create our own Hawaii. And we continue for our family to continue to bring our traditions here every day. Food is really cheap here, so I tend to cook a lot. There you go.
As past president of the Hawaii Las Vegas Civic Club, Hall still remains active in the group, aimed at helping transplants find community in the desert, where Hawaiian-owned businesses are opening up each year, offering them opportunities they may not have back home. It's these possibilities that the Pellin family hopes is in their future on the mainland.
I think the biggest thing that I don't want my son to lose, they teach him so much Hawaiian values, how to speak Olelo Hawaii, how to understand Olelo Hawaii, how to learn how to treat each other with that aloha, yeah. Really instilling a lot of good qualities in my son that represents who Hawaiian people are and what Hawaii is about.
Along with their 5 kids, the Pellins are saying farewell to the only home they've known.
In the meantime, you're making the most of it. You're doing everything you can to make this feel like home.
And the mythology back home is the Hono will always return home one day. And when that day comes, our home will welcome us with open hands and aloha. For now, this is home.
From the Hawaiian Islands to Georgia's Barrier Islands, where an historical African-American community also fears being priced out of their homes. Mark Strassman meets the residents fighting to keep their land from turning into a pricey vacation destination.
By ferry, Nikki Williams brought us to Sapelo Island, deeply rooted in West African Gullah Geechee culture. 44 families settled here after the Civil War. Their Gullah Geechee community, all formerly enslaved people.
All day, every day. We will fight for it.
Among today's descendants, Nikki Williams.
This is the closest thing that you can get to being in Africa.
You feel it in your bones.
Absolutely.
This is Hog Hammock. Little more than 400 acres, fewer than 30 full-time families. There is no main street here, just scattered homes. Scattered like more and more of the original families in this historic enclave.
Motion carries. The McIntosh County Commission changed Sapelo's zoning laws. Home sizes can double. Potentially ahead, million-dollar properties, raised property taxes, and current homeowners priced out and pushed out.
They have an extreme uphill battle.
Commissioner Roger Lotson, one of only 2 no votes, and the only commissioner who agreed to talk to us.
Is this a battle of rich versus poor?
In part it is.
Black versus white?
In part it is. Simply because there are not as many rich black folks as there are rich white folks.
Now at risk, one of America's last intact Gullah Geechee communities.
I can't see how you can't see how that hurts. And it's not just me, it's all of the descendants.
A community born in blood and tears, now sweating out its future.
Coming up, we raise a glass to the revival of an unexpected tradition. This is Eye on America. Welcome back. America's love of beer is one of the country's longest-held traditions. But we're not the only country with rich beer-making history. Roxana Saberi introduces us to an Iranian-American woman connecting with her roots by brewing beer.
At this brewery in New York, Zara Tabatabai is trying to bring beer back to its roots.
Look at that. Oh, and look, the pink is in the foam.
With a taste of who she is,
the blue salt. The blue salt, yeah. It's mild, it's sourced from the Middle East.
And where her family came from.
Not only being a woman, but also having Middle Eastern descent or parents that immigrated here from Iran. I think both factors kind of play into how people see me.
Before Iran's 1979 Islamic Revolution, about a dozen Iranian factories produced beer, vodka, and other liquors.
All of these things, when the revolution happened, were just condemned, and that's when alcohol was prohibited in the country.
Tabatabai's grandfather, who immigrated to the U.S. soon after, used to ferment beer in his basement in Iran. One day in 2020, her grandmother reminisced out loud she missed the taste of it.
It sparked the idea to try to brew a batch and see. Figured, oh, well, you know, it can't be that hard.
It can't be that hard.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty hard.
As the pandemic set in, Tabatabai, who was working as a freelance writer, experimented in her small Brooklyn kitchen.
I started that as a hobby, trying different ingredients.
What kind of ingredients?
I would use anything from sour cherries to barberries to dried black limes, sumac. The stories that I heard from my grandfather was like, oh, whatever they were kind of growing in the garden. So that's what he would use in the beer.
A year later, she rented this space on Staten Island and began rolling out cans of back-home beer.
It's fruited with sour cherries, which in Iran we use to make jams, and a really delicious and beautiful and bright sour cherry rice.
Al-Baloo polo, it's one of my favorites.
Exactly, yes, it's delicious, and also sumac. And the sumac in this beer is cured. So here we say salamati.
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 American-made beer follows European traditions, but historians say evidence of beer making dates back many millennia to China and ancient Mesopotamia, located in modern-day Iraq and Iran.
If you think about the Tigris-Euphrates River Valley, that's usually, when we talk about the beginnings of agriculture, that's usually where you're going to see some of the earliest evidence for beer making as well.
And Liz Garibay, the founder of Chicago's Beer Culture Center, says the original brewers were mainly women.
You will see a lot of hieroglyphs with women drinking and making beer.
So it wasn't extraordinary for women to be involved in brewing, it was ordinary.
Absolutely. It was everyday stuff. They've been doing it forever.
Why did the role of women in brewing diminish over the years?
Laws start changing, beer becomes business, and then that just means access to resources is incredibly limited for women.
When Islam arose in the region in the 7th century, it forbade the drinking of alcohol. Still, beer and winemaking in the Middle East continued to evolve.
I was disheartened to see that such a rich history of fermentation had almost been erased. And so for me, it was important to make that connection again between alcohol and the Middle East.
Now Tabatabai is selling 6 styles, each can designed by female Iranian artists.
This is a Rumi quote that she put on there. It says, "If light is in your heart, you will find your way home."
She delivers to more than 250 bars, restaurants, and shops in New York and Washington, D.C.
You really do have to be the change you want to see sometimes. And so in an industry like this that is dominated by white men, I came in, I didn't have any experience working in breweries or anything like that. And I've really had to learn a lot.
These days, only around 6% of breweries in the U.S. are majority or exclusively owned by women. Even fewer are run by women of color.
There are always things that happen throughout the process that I'm question if they would happen if I were a man.
Like what?
Assuming that I'm not the owner or the boss and I'm the assistant, or not giving me the time of day, and so many breweries not taking me seriously.
But Tabatabai says she's also grateful for a lot of support. From inside Iran, where Iranians sent her messages like these, asking for advice on brewing their own beer at home illegally.
They definitely brew at their own risk. And it's amazing the beer that they are making with such limited resources there.
And online, where her Kickstarter campaign recently raised more than $125,000.
My vision ultimately is to have my own brewery and tap room, to tell people to come to my home, come back home, drink this delicious beer, eat some Persian street food.
And she says she hopes brewing this beer will keep shaking up stereotypes.
Hopefully one day I can visit Iran and I can brew the beer there and they can live in a country that used to exist before the revolution.
And you can drink your beer freely
Yes.
outside on the streets.
Yes,
of
I would
Iran.
love to. I would love
with
to.
With Iranians.
Ahead, how efforts to preserve sacred waters is making waves. That story's next. We close our show on the edge of the Pacific, where a native Californian tribe is working with the government to establish a national marine sanctuary site to protect their aquatic ecosystem. Elise Preston speaks with tribal members and federal officials working to conserve their precious coastline.
Halfway between the tech capital of the world and the Hollywood Hills is this stretch of pristine California coastline, where nature still reigns, always in motion. The waves, the weather, and sea life together show off a breathtaking display.
I feel like it's a magical place. Every time I look at the ocean, I'm like, is there going to be a dolphin or a whale? And
Violet Sage Walker's life's work is conserving her ancestral territory. She's head of the Northern Chumash Tribal Council.
And as Indigenous people, we consider ourselves to be stewards of these waters.
For thousands of years, thriving Chumash villages once dotted the central California coastline. But European invasions sparked death and displacement, dramatically dwindling Chumash populations.
What were the Chumash like thousands of years ago right along this coastline?
Living in harmony with nature, living with the land, surviving with the elements of the ocean and the land.
Steve Villa is captain of the Tomo Crossing, an annual 24-mile paddle to the Channel Islands to celebrate their origin story on their ancestral island.
We get to feel what they felt. We get to experience what they did as they crossed the channel. The channel was always crossed for commerce, for trade, but also for ceremony.
Coexisting among the complex food web comprised of coral, fish, seals, sharks, and dolphins allow the Chumash to thrive.
We're in a place today that's the first of its kind, and that's because conservation efforts are being led by tribal people.
The Chumash tribes, in partnership with the National Atmospheric and Oceanic Administration, are months away from clinching a federal designation to protect, restore, and celebrate the marine environment that has defined their ancestry.
For the Chumash people, they have been a bit overlooked unfairly for a long time now. And we are here at NOAA to say, let's work in partnership and change that.
Mike Murray, a NOAA representative, is working on the final push to formalize the Chumash Heritage National Marine Sanctuary. Once granted, this would be the first proposed by an indigenous group.
Let's have this protected area, and every coastal attraction or visitor center or sign that one might encounter, make it clear that this is Chumash territory.
The sanctuary would protect 150 miles of coastline and 5,600 square miles of Pacific Ocean. The exact boundary has yet to be determined, but in essence, it would connect two existing sanctuaries, creating a continuous stretch of protected ocean.
I think makes a lot of sense because whales migrate through all of those spaces. Kelp forest can be found the full length. Ships ply through all three marine sanctuary areas. So I think it's going to give us a chance to manage more comprehensively in a way that matches up with the way the ecosystem truly exists.
While the long-held dream of a sanctuary is now within grasp, that light at the end of the tunnel did not always shine. Threats of industrialization have loomed over this treasured ecosystem.
We saw the first major offshore oil spill back in 1969 here in the Santa Barbara Channel, and that's when our relatives became environmental activists.
But what does it feel like when you say it's taken this long? You are the third generation. You've been fighting for this for decades.
Well, and it's exhausting all over the world. Tribal people are the first people that are affected by climate change. They're the first people affected by industrialization and by pollution. And we're the ones that are saying, like, let's protect this, let's save this. But it shouldn't be so hard and it shouldn't take so long to conserve what's beautiful.
Slow Gutierrez has been sounding alarms since the 1970s, when a proposed massive liquefied natural gas terminal threatened Point Conception, a sacred Chumash site.
We got a call from somebody downtown that they were bulldozers digging out on private land where our burials and stuff are.
For 14 months, Gutierrez took part in an indigenous occupation.
We were out there to die for that land, to protect our ancestors. Without Point Conceptions, our people wouldn't pass through the Western Gate, go into what you call heaven. And that's a no-no.
Their occupation succeeded, helping derail what they see as the desecration of sacred land.
And through all the things that we have faced, it says more about our people that we're still here and we're still fighting for our place.
In 2015, Fred Collins, Walker's late father, filed a marine sanctuary proposal to NOAA, hoping to put a cap on endless environmental threats.
When my dad passed away, he's like, you need to finish it. And also that it was the most important thing he had ever did in his life.
After sitting idle for years, the proposal was brought to life under President Biden, who has prioritized environmental conservation and indigenous leadership.
Respect for indigenous knowledge and tribal consultations as a key part of the federal agency decision-making.
While many of the details have yet to be sorted out, the sanctuary is on track to take effect.
What would a sanctuary do when it comes to preserving your history, your culture with the world?
In order to preserve something, in order to protect something, people have to love it. And that is like giving us the opportunity, the world stage, to share our stories and our history and why this place should be protected and why people should love it.
From this view, the ocean feels endless. Walker and many Shumash hope its natural superpowers will continue to heal for generations to come.
For more stories like these and live coverage of breaking news 24/7, stream us right here on CBS News. I'm Michelle Miller. Thank you for watching Eye on America.